Okay, so hello, Bryan.
Hello, thanks for having me.
I'm so happy that you are here with us. And maybe I will start from maybe I will introduce you to my audience because, Bryan, you are active writer, director, producer, speaker, teacher, host, director and host of Behind the Brand, a web series that profiles the people in business who are making things happen. So it's like I'm really delighted by your content, and I really appreciate that I can translate it right now into Polish, so you can reach the Polish market as well, and then they will receive some treasure from you.
Well, the pleasure is mine.
And firstly, I would like to ask you about, because you build a huge business, and did you have ever before some moments that you thought, no, I don't have any energy, I want to give up, I lost my faith, Did you have that kind of moment? And if yes, did you overcome it?
Yeah, so first of all, I don't feel like I built a huge business.
Yes.
And that's sort of a point. I think the words matter because I was working for a huge company. I was working for Universal Pictures in Hollywood, which is a big Hollywood studio that makes big blockbuster movies. And I had a big budget, which is the studio's money, not my money. Maybe $40 million a year to spend on advertising and promotions and things to help market and sell the studio's money. I mean, the studio's films. But I really got interested in production and thinking about creating original content while I was there. But I felt like there were a lot of barriers. I couldn't do it. First of all, I felt like I had to be famous, like J.J. Abrams, or I needed to have a special degree or a license, or I needed someone to, open a door, give me permission. And so I didn't do it because I was too afraid. I didn't feel like I could do it until in 2005, this little website called YouTube launched. And that for me was the sign that the playing field was being leveled, because YouTube, it democratized everything, and it allowed even cameras became more affordable, but maybe even not till a couple of years later, 2007, 2008, when the first iPhone came out, did really, high quality cameras become more affordable. But YouTube changed the game because I didn't have to wait for someone to approve or greenlight my videos. I could produce my own, I could produce them and upload them, and I didn't need millions and millions of people to watch either. I just needed the right amount.
Yes.
And so that was a game changer, and that's a theme that I've been focused on and trying to stay focused on over the last decade, doing what I'm doing, which is you don't need the mass market anymore. You just need the right amount of people who care and match it up with your goals for it to be worthwhile.
Yes. And do you have any tips or any advice how we can find the right amount of people?
Yeah, well, Seth Godin, you saw maybe a lot of his videos on my channel. He's become a mentor and friend to me, and just incredibly influenced my way of thinking, and he's just been such a great influence on me. He tells me this story of Joshua Bell, who is a concert violinist, and Joshua, I guess, was going to play at some big concert, I think in Washington, D.C., maybe it was New York, but he had sold out the entire concert hall. People were paying hundreds or maybe even thousands of dollars to see him play the violin. But they did a social experiment where they had him dress in casual clothes, put on a ball cap, and go into the subway.
Yeah.
And so what happened when he started playing? He pulled out Stradivarius violin that was over $1 million. He started playing the most beautiful music in the subway. And what happened? Hardly anyone cared. You know, he had his case open, I'm sure, you know, $1 or a quarter, and people chipped in. And some people I heard stopped to listen and applauded, but then they just kept moving right along because it was the subway, right? And they didn't expect to hear a concert violinist of that caliber play there. And so what's the lesson? The lesson is whenever you're doing something, you have to consider two things. What's it for and who's it for? That's what Seth taught me. Joshua was playing to the wrong audience. And so it's another way to sort of check what you're doing, whether or not it's delivering the right value. Is, you know, maybe it is of high value, but you're just talking to the wrong, you're playing for the wrong people. Or the other problem is you think it's of high value, but it's not as good as you think it is. Those are two things to check. And so, you know, how many is the right number of people? That all depends on what your goal is. You know, if your goal is, you know, a financial goal, that's one thing, but it might also be to get people to talk about your story or talk about your message. And, you know, I'm an example of that. You know, here you are half a world away. You watched my video and you reached out to me, and now we're speaking. And you're helping me reach your audience. And that's how things go viral. That's how good ideas spread.
Yeah, but firstly, you know, because I came, you know, originally I come from Poland, and in UK, mostly I work with Polish migrants, and it's something that Brené Brown called two faces of shame. I'm not good enough, and who do you think you are?
Right.
And, you know, and a lot of clients that I work with, we have to overcome these faces of shame, and then they have to believe that they deserve something better, no matter what kind of accent you have. And for me, it was the lesson with you. When you put this advertisement that you are looking for a translator, I thought maybe my English isn't good enough. And then I realized, Angelina, it's some voice in your head, whispers something, it's authentical, but it isn't true. Maybe your English for Bryan will be enough. And then I realized, yes, I don't have enough. So it's a little dose of courage, brave, and overcome the two faces of shame.
Yeah, I love Brene Brown. She's one of my favorite authors. Another lesson I learned from another author friend, Simon Sinek. Simon and I talked about courage, and you know, he reminded me, and we discussed the fact that courage is like a muscle. The more you use it, the more courageous you become. The opposite is true. When you don't use that courage muscle, it becomes weaker. And so courage is not the lack of fear. Courage is the willingness to fight through the fear or dance with it. Okay with it. And even get up when you get punched in the mouth. You know, that's courage.
Yes, and I think that you gave me during the last few weeks, I think that you gave me even more lessons that I have to take. Because when I wrote to you after this overcome my fear, for example, then, you know, you didn't reply for I don't know, maybe 2 weeks, because probably you was busy. And then I realized what kind of interpretation we build in our mind, because I thought, oh, probably he will not speak with me. Maybe my translation wasn't good enough. You know, it was so good to be true. And then I realized, Angelina, it's still authentical, but it don't have to be true. So write again. And I write the next email to you and the next message. But in my case, and I think that in case of a lot of people, the level of self-development has some influence of the level of our career or the private life. So because I'm growing, you know, and I fight for a better life. I have more courage, more brave, a lot of faith inside, it's much easier for me. So I am more prepared to that kind of challenge
Yeah.
right now that you gave me.
Well, I'm really happy to hear you say those things, because I think it's something that I constantly need to be reminded of, and other people can really benefit from it too. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, yes. And I found that you had been studied in Japan. And I would love to hear more about your experience. Do you know Japanese? And it will be very complicated and maybe long question, but I would like to ask you about Ikigai as well, because I have been on Okinawa in October previously year, and I found it that the people in Okinawa, this island on the south part of Japan, the people live there for the longest one, and they are the most happy people in the world. And then I realized that they have some word for describe this experience, and it's called Ikigai, a reason for being alive. And then I start to think that, and maybe I will ask you, do you believe that everybody here on the earth has some reason to being alive, like mission, vision, role to play on the earth?
そうですよ。僕は日本語でこれ言葉やったらいいんですよね。生きがいについてあんまり深く喋らないかもしれないんですけど。Did you want me to answer in Japanese or English?
Obrigado gozaimasu. Please in English right now.
Yeah, Ikigai is something that I really believe in, but I didn't really find until I cut the cord, to my big job and started on my own.
Yes.
To me, Ikigai is about finding your true purpose, or really loving what you do.
Yeah.
And it's a very old philosophy, right? Like when you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work. That idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is your question, do I believe in that? Yes. Are you asking how do you find it?
Exactly.
It's a good question. I think well, let me start by saying that my kids have asked me the same question, and the advice that I've given them is really try and focus in on the intersection of what you love to do and what you're good at. So what you love to do and what you're good at. And the reason for that is because, if you love art, but you're a terrible artist, you'll be a starving artist, right? You're not be able to make a living out of that. You might enjoy painting, but you're going to suffer in other parts of your life that, you need to have a place to live, you need food and shelter, that may not work out for you long term. Or if you're great at math and accounting, but you hate it, it's, it sucks the life out of you. It's, crushes your soul. You're not going to be happy for very long. So you really need to find that intersection of what I'm great at and what I love to do. Because as an example, my kids and their friends, if you ask them, what do you want to do when you grow up? They say, I want to be a YouTuber. I want to be a YouTuber. I want to be famous. And I said, if your goal is to be famous, you're already doing it wrong. Your goal should be to be respected and to deliver value, because fame and fortune is a function of being good at what you do. If you focus on being really great at what you do and being respected, money will follow you, and opportunities will follow you. So that would be my best advice, to finding your true passion, your true calling. I talked with another person I really respect, Sir Ken Robinson, who has one of the most viewed TED Talks in history. He talks about how important art and culture, especially he tells the story about the dancer, and how we sometimes as a society value mathematics and science over the arts. And he said, they're equal, you know, and that we need just as many dancers as we do mathematicians, right? And he wrote this book called The Element, which is, you know, talking about, you know, a fish's element is in the water, a bird's element is in the sky. And I think it was Albert Einstein who talked about, you know, if you compare a fish and a bird, right? It's like, well, the fish can't fly, or the fish can't do this. Well, if you're comparing it to the bird, of course it can't, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
You have to compare it to its element.
Yes, and I really agree with you, because in this modern world, I have some impression that when we spoke about engineers, about science, you know, they are on the high position right now. They receive a good salary, and all the people who has these soft skills, like a nurse, you know, teachers in the school, they are a little bit unpaid. And when I heard Dalai Lama in 2008, he told that the women from West will save the world. I start to think that all these soft skills that they aren't really appreciated right now, maybe they will gain some highest level, and it will be maybe the road to heal the earth, heal the, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and I agree with you, but I would go back to the fact that we need a balance. So diversity is a good thing.
Yeah.
We don't want, you know, the same of everything, right? Diversity is great because we have balance. So we need mathematicians, and we need scientists, and we need lawyers, and we need doctors, but we also need, you know, painters and dancers. We need singers and writers. We need creative thinkers and philosophers. We need it all.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, you are right. You know about the future and how to discover your mission, because I had that problem in my past, and because we are the sum of the stimuli we were exposed to, you know. So some environment is around me, and when I was child, I didn't have any choice to choose with who I want to spend my time, what I should do, you know. And in my adult life, I can exactly choose what kinds of people I have in my life near to me, what kind of experience I want to invite to my life, so I can choose wisely. And I didn't know which direction I have to choose. So my friend, she's neurophysiologist. Right now she's in Japan. So it was the reason that I have been in Okinawa to visit her. And she told me, Angelina, take a paper and take a pen, because it was in 1998, so we didn't have computer in Poland. So she told me, take a piece of paper and the pen and try, design yourself, who you want to be, who you want to become. And I didn't believe it, but I started to write. And on the first position, on the top position on my list was to be brave, because I was neurotic. You know, I have full of fear inside. So I thought, yes, I want to be brave. Then I want to travel. Then I want to be assertive. Like I put a lot of things on the list. And then when I was in the situation that I have to make some decision, I already know what I should choose, because when, for example, before my first public speaking, when I have been on the scene and I thought, oh my God, it's time to escape, I knew it, that if I escape right now, it's over, the game is over, because I will not become the Angelina that I want to be. And then I start to realize, I'm not sure that you will agree with me, that maybe design yourself, even to write on the piece of paper who you want to be after 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, it isn't really design yourself, it's maybe discover yourself and take something, all this expectation that the people put on you, you know what I mean? Like a huge, I've heard the story about Buddha, like a huge gold Buddha in Asia, and it was covered on the small pieces of glasses and a lot of things to cover this Buddha because of the war. And some people found it that under this glass it's real gold and it's the biggest Buddha in Asia. And I thought that maybe it's the same with us, that I design myself, I build my preferring future, but maybe it's something that I uncover and discover more than design. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like the analogy. I think it's really valuable. If you're asking my opinion, I
Yes.
think, you know my history, that I'm adopted,
Mm-hmm.
that I wasn't born into my biological family. So I've had a lot of time to think about nature and nurture. And,
Yes.
and nature is kind of what you're talking about. We're the Buddha made of gold,
Yes.
uh, maybe covered with dirt or glass or a covering.
Yeah.
And that is, I do believe in that we are born with those inherent gifts, value, and quality. I believe that.
Yeah.
But I also believe in nurture,
Mm-hmm.
because I've just seen it. I've had to. I've been the recipient of that, because I now know my biological family a little bit better, and I know that I would be different if I had grown up in their family.
Mm-hmm.
And so the good news is, I think, for anyone who's struggling with identity,
Mm-hmm.
is that inherently uh, we are amazing, all of us humans. No matter what your skin color is, what your gender is, what your value system is, we are all born amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the good news. Um, More good news is we don't have to inherit our past.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're born into a past that we don't like, that we want to make changes, we do have the power to change.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even though it's in our blood and our DNA, if we're not satisfied with that history, we can change, and we can make new decisions
Mm-hmm.
to decide who we become. And I think a lot of smart philosophers have said that, and I think maybe it was Gandhi that said that basically, the the seeds of our thoughts become our actions,
Mm-hmm.
and our actions become our choices, and the choices make us who we become.
Mm-hmm.
And so who we are, I think, is a accumulation of the choices in life, you know,
Yeah.
and that is who we are. That's our character.
Mm-hmm.
For better or for worse. One of my um, mantras, one of my favorite sayings, my quote. If you ask me what's my favorite quote,
Yeah.
it is this idea that every day is a new chance to be my very best.
Mm-hmm.
And if I look at the comparison to like someone who runs track and field, a runner,
Mm-hmm.
yes, they're trying to win the race, but running is all about your PR, your personal record.
Mm-hmm.
It's not me trying to be better than him or her. It's
Mm-hmm.
me versus me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a race against myself.
Mm-hmm.
So when I think about every day as a new chance to be my very best, I'm not comparing myself to Angelina. I'm comparing myself to Bryan yesterday. Am I a little better today? And if I am, I'm
Mm-hmm.
winning.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Thank you that you share with us this quote, because it's really full of wisdom, and it will help a lot of people, I think, to hear what you said before. And I would like to ask you right now about this transfer, because in this interview that I've translated, and the interview, because it was the first conversation which I heard with you and with Seth Godin, and when you share your story, I thought that it's amazing, because in this world, I think sometimes it's very difficult to find something authentical and authentic, some true and values. And it was so easy to understand you and meet you. And I think that it was so brave that you shared this story with us. But behind every human being, we have some story from our past. I even start to think about my friends who had wonderful family without any issues, and I couldn't find. So it's it was very, this story had really huge impact for me and totally changed my point of view. And I would like to ask you about this transfer and this change from the victim position into survivor, like you told in this film.
Yeah. You're asking me how did I make the change?
Yes, please.
Yeah. They talk about light bulb moments when the
Yeah.
light goes on and you see things differently than you saw them before.
Yeah.
And I realized, especially considering my background as an adoptees, and I can't speak for all of them, but in my situation, this was something I had no control over.
Yeah.
Even today, I do not have access to my original birth certificate. The state, the country has locked it away in a vault, and I don't have permission. My biological mother made that decision that my identity, my medical records, and all of that, my history, would be kept secret. Now, to adoptees, that feels unfair because if you think about a contract between two people, both parties have to decide and agree for there to be a contract.
Yeah.
But in my case, my mother signed the contract without my permission, and clearly I don't have the same rights. And so I've always kind of felt a lack of control. Ironically, playing the victim gives up control to the other person, either to your captor, to your enemy, to the world, to your mind. And when I realized that the only way to take back control is to take back my voice, that I am really the captain of my own ship. I decide. Things happen, bad things happen to people, way worse than what I'm talking about. I think about Nelson Mandela, for example, who was put in prison for all those years in South Africa. But what was his decision? I mean, my understanding of history is, he had some very difficult past history with violence and other things in the country. But when he was put in prison, he decided that he was going to be at peace, and he was going to change his attitude, that he was going to not let the people take away his soul, his heart, his dream, his vision.
Yeah.
And I think someone who I think of as an example of going through extreme hardship and difficulty, but who came out the other side stronger and more in control of his life and his destiny, because he decided how to deal with his situation. And that was kind of what Seth reminded me about, was that no one's coming to rescue me.
Yeah.
There's no rescue boats. There's no Prince Charming. There's no one's up late thinking about me, caring about me. I need to save myself. And so that light came on, and I realized that's how I can get control back and feel like I'm in control of my life, despite bad things happening, despite the adversity, despite the sad feelings and the heartbreak. I can still deal and decide how to deal with it from now on.
Yes.
I can't change the past. I can't change my skin color. I can't change, if I was born poor or rich. I can't change if I was born short or tall, thin or larger. but I can change and decide how I deal with that. And that gave me incredible feeling of control over my own destiny. It's an incredible feeling.
So it sounds like the last word it's always belong to you. I don't know that you heard about Frank. Viktor Frank. He was
Yeah.
in Auschwitz, I think Auschwitz-Birkenau, in the concentration camp,
Yeah.
and he thought that the people who survived were the people who had something different in their mind. So they write some book, or they write some song. They are always, they have always on the last word. It was on their side because they decide what they will have in their mind. So yeah, it's
a lot of these great leaders, in our country, it's Martin Luther King Jr., or you think about Gandhi, or you think about Nelson Mandela, some of these great historical figures who sometimes had to pay with their own life some of the struggles that they went through. These are great lessons for us. Someone like me who has such small problems. It's a great lesson to learn how to deal with them.
Yeah. And I would like to ask you about the coaching and the self-development movement right now, because sometimes I met some clients, especially in the individual therapy, who went for some workshops, trainings, event, and they coming back like, yes, I will be the best, I am the winner, and after a few months, I had a conversation even 2 days ago when my client told me, Angelina, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I felt like a hamster in the circle. And when I speak with my coach told me it's excuses. It's excuses. You have to go on, keep going. Remember that I think that sometimes maybe we cross some border, that it's too much because like the human beings, you told about some balance, that it's about our strength and weakness. If you want to be happy, you have to be sad. If you want to have energy, sometimes you have to be tired. You know what I mean? The two edges, 2 points of the same line. You cannot have sun without the moon, the day without night, the short without the long. So, and sometimes it's like a new age theory, or maybe coached. I'm not sure how to call it, but we push these people and they fight and they are going, but it's a little bit too much and unauthentical. Do you agree with me?
Well, it's a loaded question, and I would give you an answer kind of vague. I'm sorry, but I would say it depends.
Yeah.
It depends. So I go back to thinking of this idea of self-awareness, that you really have to know yourself. Shakespeare said it, right? Know thyself, to thine own self be true. And it's so important because maybe you are the type of person who needs a little bit of push to make the leap. And maybe that's a good thing. But you also have to be self-aware to know your limits. Again, if you're getting coaching from a coach, let's say, who runs a 4-minute mile.
Yeah.
And she says, if I can do it, you can do it.
Yes.
Well, is that true? Maybe, or maybe not. Because that person was born with the genetics or the lung capacity to run a 4-minute mile. Maybe you were not born that way. And so we also have to accept and recognize our potential and limitations. And sometimes the only way to know is to try and then fail. And so I think the trick is to know how many times you need to keep trying before you either, quit or pivot to try something different. Maybe you're a better swimmer than you are a runner. Maybe.
Yeah.
So it's about trying, experimenting. If you're getting coached by someone who's pushing you, you feel too far, I'd say you just have to try it to see if you can do it. And if you determine that you cannot,
Mm-hmm.
then you try something else.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
You know, I wrote my book, and in the one chapter is about the dresses, that you have some dresses in the wardrobe, like some skills that you want to achieve, some experience. For example, I want, like I told you before, I want to be brave, or I want to be assertive, and I treat sometimes this experience or situation, I treat like a dress. So I put this dress because it's so nice, and
Yeah,
then I look on the mirror and say, yes, it's good, it's fit to me, it's good. Or
yeah,
sometimes I say, no, it isn't for me. Even it looks gorgeous in the
yeah,
shop, but it isn't for me. So
that's
it's
right.
so good to go inside, deeply inside this experience and check it. It's even the sentence that show me and I will forget, tell me and maybe I will remember, but engage me and I will never forget.
Right.
And it's something about experience. And I have one question about gender, because a few days ago I spoke with my colleague he works in the same fields, and I asked him that for me it's so easy to be a woman in some point of view, because I can be tired, I can be upset, I can even cry, and nobody will be disappointed or, surprised. But you are a man, because I saw that it's so hard for him to ask about help, or it's so hard to admit that he doesn't understand something, And then I realized that maybe it's a gender issues. What do you think about it? That you have to
Yeah.
always play superhero role.
Uh, you know, I can only speak from the male point of view, of course,
Yeah,
but my guess is that each of us, male, female, we have our separate but equally challenging issues.
yeah,
For example, on average in the United States, uh, women are making 70 cents or 60 cents for every dollar, that men make.
mm,
That's not fair.
yeah,
Um, and you might be more qualified or better at your job than a man is, and you still make less.
yeah,
That's not fair. Um, Men, we have our own issues about masculinity, about being vulnerable.
yeah,
Um, Even there's a little bit of a double standard. Like I find that, speaking about my wife, for example, she wants a strong man, but she also wants a man who is sensitive and caring.
yeah,
But like if I start to show a little bit of weakness, she also kind of says, "Come on, be a man." And
yeah,
so it's very confusing. So I'm sure in your world there's plenty of that sort of contradiction and challenges as a female. I would say that we have, you know, um, separate but equally challenging issues.
yeah, yeah. Hmm. Do you have some, I call it in my life the triangle of the power. So, it's like a diagram of the three items who give me my energy and my power. For sure, it's a meditation with Tara Brach. I don't know that you heard about Tara Brach, but she's amazing about radical self-acceptance, and I love her. So it's Tara Brach and meditation generally, and
Hmm.
it's jogging, and it's some kind of food for my soul, so the good books. And it was amazing because when I start to listen your vlogs on the YouTube, I realized that everybody who are in your show, I have the books on my shelf, and I, wow, it's amazing. How did you make it? Because you invite so many people that I admire, so many people that I follow and learn from them. How did you make it?
Well, persistence. Seth Godin was one of my first, and he turned me down for over a year. He said no. I don't know who you are. He didn't say I don't care, but that's what he was saying. Um,
Yes.
And so I was just persistent, because I think in business, um, sometimes when you hear the word no, it's no for now or not yet.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've learned in, to have moderate success in this, still a lot of people say no,
Yeah.
but I don't give up. I just say, okay, it's no for now. I'll talk to you next year or in 5 years. I'm running the tortoise's race. But I also think that a lot of people get confused about value. And if I could give any advice on this, whether it's asking someone to be on your show or your podcast or whatever, it's also about getting new clients.
Yeah.
It's surprising to me how many people who are asking the favor think that they're bringing the value to the person they're asking,
Yeah.
when it's completely selfish.
Yeah.
It's for them, not for them. And so I think my advice would be to think about that person first. What do they need? What do
Yeah.
they want? What stories do they tell themselves? What's valuable to them? If you can solve their problem first, then they'll help you solve your problem. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Of course.
But I think too many of us assume, oh, I created a new product for you. Here it is. But the person doesn't care. Ah, no, I don't like that product. Or
Yes.
here's my service. I created it for you. And they
Yeah.
hope they're going to buy it. But it's like, no, I don't care so much. I don't like it. Or I have something else that's better.
Yeah.
Um, we have to first, you know, um, understand, back to those two questions that Seth taught me. What's it for?
Yeah.
Who's it for?
Yeah.
What's it for? Who's it for? And so as we're thinking about the person that it's for, we have to deliver the value first before we expect something to come back to us.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. Of course. Yes. And it's really even sounds like more fair to this person, when you bring first value. And even in our situation, if I can share, even in our situation, because I thought that when you ask about this translation, and obviously, because I shared your content before, but a lot of people didn't understand at all. And I told you, I even wrote the email to you that one of my friends told me, oh, it's so good that you translated, Angelina, because I recommend this podcast to so many people, but they don't even listen because they don't understand. So I thought that even if nothing will be after my translation, even if I will not meet you, it will be valuable to put this content into the Polish market.
Yeah.
But I was on the position like it was so clean, like clean relationship between us, because I thought that I have something to give you. I'm not
Yeah.
only here to take something from you, because I know that I will not be myself and it will be really hard to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe it's,
Well, the other thing I would say is, um, there's a difference between a gift and a transaction.
yeah,
So if you give, what's the Greek quid pro quo,
quick pro quo, yeah,
right? If you do something with the expectation of something in return,
yeah,
that's called a transaction.
yeah,
We do business that way. I do this for you if, and it's conditional, if you
yeah,
do this for me. That's a transaction, and it's there's no emotion there. There's no relationship. You know, uh, I go buy some bread from the store. I give them some money. They give me some bread. Right? I
yeah,
don't care about them. I can buy my bread anywhere.
yeah,
But when you give a gift,
yes,
uh, you don't expect anything in return.
yes,
If you're giving a gift for someone's birthday or it's a special occasion, you just give a gift, and that brings you happiness,
yes,
right?
of
Uh,
course,
and so if you approach business where possible,
yeah,
and you can give, I'm not talking about, giving everything that you have, but like if you can approach it like a gift where you're not expecting something in return,
yeah,
the possibility of really good things happening is big.
mm,
Because, um, the value of that gift, what it yields is trust and friendship and relationship, and the other person might also feel, if they're the kind of person who's not selfish, or
Mm-hmm.
selfish, they'll feel obligated to return the favor.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening between us. You volunteered to translate my video. I was very grateful.
Yeah.
And I asked you what you needed.
Yes.
And you said, I want to do this interview. So I said, of
Yeah.
course. Okay.
Yeah, it was amazing. I
Well,
didn't believe it. And
well, so I'll say one other thing that's important, I think, is, if there's an imbalance, like you do the translation for me, and then you ask me, can you buy me a new car? And I'm thinking, that's not equal.
yeah.
So we have to make sure that the request
Yeah.
is is uh, is not too big a request, especially since I'm interviewing a lot of wealthy, important, famous people.
Yeah.
I need to be careful with how I asked and what I asked for.
Yes.
And so I think the same thing applies to every situation. It's like you can't ask too much,
Yeah.
and you have to expect maybe the right amount in return
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
first.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. It's wonderful advice. And I think that I have the last question to
Okay.
you, Bryan, about advice. What kind of advice you will give to newborn child?
Yes. Oh, that's a good question. Um, I'm someone who's inspired by other people. Um,
Yeah.
I heard something that Picasso said, the painter. He
Yeah.
said, he said, all children are born artists.
Yeah.
The trouble is, as we grow up, people convince us that we're not.
Yeah.
And so, you can also think of math as an art,
Yeah.
science as an art, being a pilot as an art, a psychologist as your art.
Yeah.
Whatever your art is, my recommendation is don't forget that you are an artist. You were born that way. You were
Mhm.
born amazing.
Mhm.
You were born to do amazing things, not to be mediocre, not to conform. You were born uniquely you.
Yeah.
There's no one else like you. And so figure out who you are, what you're capable of doing, and be amazing.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you, Bryan. It was amazing time. I really appreciate. I'm so happy that you are here and you gave us so many, wisdom and advices and tips. So it will inspire me. So thank you very much
Well,
for the interview.
I'm humbled that you asked me. I'm happy to chat with you and get to know you and my new Polish audience, my new Eastern European friends.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.